Hey, good morning. Everybody hear me okay? Alrighty. This is number five, right? Fifth time I've been here at Grundy Street. I mean this in a good way. It's felt like a lot more than that, but it's good to be here with you guys this morning. If you have a Bible with you, I'm going to be at the end of Luke chapter 20 this morning. Luke chapter 20, starting in verse 45. We'll read the end of Luke 20, and then we'll move into the beginning of Luke chapter 21. So if you have a Bible with you. As we get started this morning, if you would, I want you to ask yourself this, reflect on this with me, search your heart concerning this as we begin this morning. In a culture and a society that is so obsessed with what we can get and how we can be blessed and what we can receive and what we can be given to, right? How we can be adored and praised and be made the center of everybody's attention, with so many people that are so focused on that and obsessed with that. That's their only aim in life, really. It's even crept into the church. There are so many followers of Christ that have that mentality and that mindset and that goal, right? Just to be praised and to be given to and to receive. So many people come into church with this mindset, like, I'm here to get something. I'm here to receive something. With all of that in view, with so many people that think that so many people thinking that the Jesus kingdom is about what they can get, living in light of the Jesus kingdom is about what they can get. With all of that in view, I ask you this morning, what are you willing to lose? With so many people that think that living in light of Jesus' kingdom is about what they can get, this morning I ask you, what are you willing to lose? At the end of Luke chapter 20, starting in verse 45, Jesus is there with his disciples in Jerusalem in the temple courts. They're in this one area called the Court of Women. He's there teaching and he's preaching, and it says this in Luke 20, starting in verse 45. While all the people were listening, Jesus said to his disciples, "Beware of the teachers of the law. They like to walk around in flowing robes, love to be greeted with respect in the marketplaces, and have the most important seats in the synagogues and the places of honor at banquets. They devour widows' houses and for a show make lengthy prayers. These men will be punished most severely." And we see this all throughout the Gospels, right? We see Jesus calling out and condemning the religious leaders of that day, right? The Pharisees, the Sadducees, the teachers of the law. He calls them out. He condemns them, right? Because they don't really care about God. They don't care about his people. They don't care about loving God and knowing him and loving his people. The only thing they really care about is themselves. That's it. They don't care about anything else. It's all about how they can be praised and how they can be given to and how they can be served and how they can be loved and how they can be adored and made the center of everybody's attention. That's all their focus is, right? And all throughout the Gospels, Jesus condemns them and calls them out. And all throughout the Gospels, Jesus condemns pride and self-exaltation all throughout his teachings. He says, when you make yourself first in life, you put yourself first, I'll make sure to make you last. But when you put yourself last and you put God first and you put the people in your life first, I'll actually make you first. The last will be first and the first will be last. All throughout the Bible, it says that God opposes the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. And Jesus says, when you exalt yourself, I'll make sure to humble you. But when you willingly humble yourself, I'll exalt you. I'll lift you up. Those that want to be the greatest among you, you will be least. But whoever willingly chooses to be least among you, you'll be the greatest. On the night of his betrayal, Jesus is with his disciples and they're eating and they're all arguing. They still think he's this political military leader that's going to overthrow the Romans, right? And they're all arguing like, no, I'm going to be second in command and I'm going to be this. And they're all arguing about who's going to be the greatest. And Jesus gets up and he basically puts on a slave uniform. And he starts washing his disciples' feet. And this is so countercultural and so backwards for those in the first century, because in that day the rabbi was served, the rabbi was honored, the rabbi was given to, and he was praised and adored. And here's Jesus, the ultimate rabbi, who's serving his disciples. It's also backwards for them. That's why Peter is so disgusted at the thought, right? And Jesus says to them, who would you rather be? Would you rather be the one that sits at the table and is served? Or would you rather serve. He says, I'm not among you as one who sits at the table and is served, but I serve. He says, not even the Son of Man to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for all of those that are held hostage by sin and death. Do you know Jesus actually tells you how to party? Did you know that, right? He says, when you go to the banquet and you go to the best seat in the house, I'll escort you to the worst. But if you willingly take the worst seat, the lowly spot, I'll move you up to the best. And when Jesus, you make your life all about you and what you can get and how you can be praised and served and given to and loved and adored and made the center of everybody's attention, he says, it's there that you'll lose your life. But if you willingly let go of all of that for me, it's there that you'll find true life, a life with me. And that's the point of Christianity. It's a life with Jesus, eternal life that starts today and then on into eternity. The last will be first and the first will be last. So we're going to start in the next chapter, chapter 21. I want to go, just before I go any further, I want to say this sermon is not about tithing and the free will offering, about giving to the church. Your elders did not ask me to preach about that. That's not what this sermon's actually about. This is about giving in all areas of your life, work, church, school, your family, your community, wherever you play, whatever it is. It's about giving and serving in those areas, okay? Not just giving to the church in all aspects of your life. That's what this sermon's going to be about today. So starting in the next chapter, Luke 21, verse 1, it says, as Jesus looked up, he saw the rich putting their gifts into the temple treasury. So like we said, Jesus is in the temple courts. He's in the court of women, teaching and preaching. And he looks up, and there's these 7 boxes that the Jews were supposed to give. That's where they gave to the temple work, right? There were 7 boxes. 6 of those boxes were free will offering boxes, kind of like what we do here at the church. It's whatever you can give, whatever you feel compelled to give, whatever you could give. That was what those 6 boxes were for. The 7th box was for the temple tax. And so if you've read the Old Testament, the books of Ezra and Nehemiah, when King Cyrus tells the Jews they can go back and rebuild Jerusalem, you remember Zerubbabel rebuilds the temple, Nehemiah rebuilds the walls, Ezra rebuilds the people. And at this time, the end of the Old Testament, this is the rise of this the religious leadership that we see in the New Testament kind of rises up. The Pharisees, the Sadducees, the teachers of the law, that's where this rises up. And this idea of the temple tax kind of comes into play. Now that they've come back from Jerusalem, they're like, okay, everybody's going to pitch in to make this temple work happen, right? So the 7th box was for the temple tax. And so Jesus looks up while he's teaching and preaching, and he sees all of these rich people throw in gifts and money into these boxes. Most likely, a lot of them were the religious leaders of the day, right? Because they were very wealthy. And so he sees all these people throwing in money and throwing in gifts. And it says this in verse 2. He also saw a poor widow put in 2 very small copper coins. Widow doesn't really pop off of us like it would the original audience, but for the original audience, this would have stood out, right? Because in that day, women were very dependent on their husbands to provide, to have a good source of income, to have the resources they needed to live, right? And so if you were a widow, you were kind of out of luck, really, right? Especially if you didn't have sons that could have took care of you. This is one of the many reasons why the Bible condemns divorce like it. If you were a widow, you were kind of out of luck. You didn't have the right money, and you couldn't live as well as you could have, right? If you had a husband. And so it says that she was a poor widow. And it says 2 very small copper coins. I know a lot of you, the Bible scholars, know this, right? But this would have been 2 lepta. That's the kind of currency this was. And for us today, this would have been less than 1 cent. That's what this is equivalent to, less than 1 American cent. And look what Jesus says about this. I love this. Verse 3. Truly I tell you, he said, this poor widow has put in more than all the others. All these people gave their gifts out of their wealth, but she, out of her poverty, put in all that she had to live on. And we don't really know why the rich gave like they did, or why they gave, right? We don't really know what their heart was, but most likely because of the way that Luke puts these 2 stories back to back, right? The end of 20 and then the beginning of 21. It was for a show, right? It was to show everybody, look how awesome I am and how holy and righteous I am. You know, adore me, praise me, make me the center of your attention. Look at how great I am. Serve me, praise me, give to me, right? There was selfish motive behind it. It was that, or maybe it was just ritual, right? It was just, this is the thing that we do at this time of the week. And in both of those cases, there's no love, there's no sacrifice. It was for some other motive. But Jesus points this out because this woman was impoverished, her offering was love and it was sacrifice. It was out of love and out of sacrifice. A lot of you know who this woman was, but there was a woman named Mother Teresa, and she served in one of the most poorest parts of India, the slums of Calcutta. And I know a lot of you have heard this quote. It's her most famous quote. And she says, man, everybody wants to do big things for God. And people want to have these huge ministries, and they want to give in these huge ways, and they want to lead revival, and they want to do that, and they want to do this. And she says, that's not really what Jesus asks of us. It's not what Jesus wants. What Jesus wants is little things, but with huge love. Huge love and huge sacrifice. And that quote is this story is a perfect picture of that, right? The rich that are doing these huge things for God, but with selfish motives. And this poor widow who does something small, but with tremendous love. And you've heard me say this before, but the heart of love is sacrifice. In a culture and a society that has this twisted view of what love is a sacrifice. It's how the Bible defines it. Little things, but with huge love and sacrifice. And if we're just being honest, so many of us this morning have the same mindset and mentality, the same goals as the religious leaders and the rich in this story. We look at all of the aspects of our life, the areas of our life, and we think, how can I be served? How can I be given to? How can I be praised? How can I be loved and adored? How can I be made the center of everybody's attention? And what Christ invites us into, and what this widow says yes to, right, is to ask in all aspects of our life, where can I serve? Where can I help out? Where can I love? Where can I bless somebody? Where can I point everyone to Christ? Where can I make him the focal point, him the center of attention, and have the mindset of, I don't care if I'm forgotten as long as Christ is remembered. I don't care if I receive anything back as long as God is glorified. We have way too many Christians that go into work with the mindset of, I'm here to get my money, I'm here to get my benefits, I'm here to fit in with everybody on break and then leave. And that is not why Christ has put you there. Christ has put you there to be the light in a dark world that so desperately needs it. And if you live with this mentality of, I'm here to get something, I want something, I want to receive, I want to be served, you will always be let down. But if you come into every aspect of your life that I'm here to give, I'm here to love, I'm here to help out, you'll be fulfilled as Jesus calls us into, right? I know this sounds so bizarre to you guys, but I'm going to say it. Those of you who are in a transitional period, like you're looking for a new job, instead of where can I make more money, where can I have better benefits, where can I fit in more, where can I be more comfortable, where can I move up the ladder and be in charge? What if you asked, where can I serve more? Where can I love people more? Where can I be the loving presence of Jesus more? What place needs the light of Jesus the most? Where can I use my gifts the most? Where can I point people to Christ the most? I know some of you are retired and you've actually done that, right? You've sought out places to work and volunteer and to help out. Or maybe you just have a lot of time on your hands or whatever it may be. I truly believe this. You don't have to wait until you're retired to do that. You can start that right now. You can start it tomorrow morning before you go in. How can I help out? How can I serve? I'm here to give. I'm here to point people to Christ. And I don't care if I'm forgotten as long as Christ is remembered. With that being said, would you go to that Colossians 3 passage with me if you have a Bible with you? Colossians chapter 3. I know the Bible scholars in here know this, but when Paul writes to the church in Colossae and then the church in Ephesus, he addresses the household, right? The household within Christ at the end of the letters. And what he says to the household servants, the slaves, right? They're almost identical. I like the one in Colossians a little bit more since we're going to look at. And slavery is an awkward kind of subject, right? In the first century in the Roman Empire, there were millions of slaves. It wasn't the exception, it was the rule in that day, right? And there's varying degrees of slavery. The one that we see in the New Testament is basically equivalent to a job for us today. So I'm going to change the wording when I read this a little bit so it's more applicable to us. Colossians 3, starting in verse 22, Paul says this. So I'm going to change the words a little bit. Employees, obey your bosses in everything. And do it, listen to this, not only when their eye is on you. Going back to what we talked about at the beginning, not for praise, not to be served, not to be given to, not for selfish motives, not to be made the center of everybody's attention, and to curry their favor, but listen to this, with sincerity of heart, to do little things with great love and great sacrifice and reverence for the Lord. Whatever you do, work at it with all of your heart. And then listen to this, as working for the Lord, not for human masters, since you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward. And please listen to this last part. It is the Lord Christ you are serving. It's not, there's no as if there. It is the Lord Christ that you are serving, that everything that you do this week, do it for Jesus. And you offer it up to him. Lord Jesus, I do all of this for you. Whatever you do it all for Christ. I love how when Christ comes into somebody's life, everything becomes a ministry. You do it all for Christ. Not as if it is for Jesus. And I'll just throw this out there. This has changed my life. This week, whenever you're asked to do something you don't want to do, or it's time to do something that you don't enjoy, imagine Christ himself asking you to do it. Watch how this changes your demeanor and your attitude and your mindset. Watch how it gives you zeal. Watch how you do it with devotion. As the Lord Christ you are serving. Everything you do this week, you're not just there for a paycheck. You are serving Christ. A little bit before this, in verse 17, Paul addresses everybody. And he says, whatever you do, whether in word or deed, do it all in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him. When the Bible talks about doing something in the name of somebody, it means to do it as if you were them, as their representative, as their ambassador. So everything you do this week, do it for Jesus and as if you were him. How would Christ live your life? That's how you're supposed to live, however Christ would live your life. Everything you do this week, it's not between you and them. It's not between you and your boss. It's not between you and your coworkers and the customers and whoever you deal with. It's between you and Christ. Do it all as if all of it was for him and as if you were him. As I close, would you reflect on these with me? If you're just being truly honest with yourself, what do you desire this morning? To be served, to be loved, to be praised and given to? Or to serve, love, praise, and give? What are you seeking to do this morning? Is it big things with selfish motives? Or is it little things with great love and sacrifice? And finally, how do you go about your duties? Is it as if for earthly masters and pay and whatever else? Or do you do everything for Jesus and as if you were Jesus? In the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus, he talks to his disciples and he says, at the end of everything, I will split everyone into two groups. On one side, there will be the goats. On the other side, there will be the sheep. He says, on that day, I'll say to my sheep, I was hungry and you fed me. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was naked and you clothed me. I was sick and you came to visit me. I was in prison and you came to visit me. You served me willingly. You loved me. You blessed me. You gave to me. You sought me out. It says that his sheep will say to him, Lord, when did we see you? When I see you hungry and feed you? When did I see you thirsty and give you something to drink? When did I see you naked and sick in prison? When did we serve you and love you and give to you? And it says that our King will say to them, King Jesus will say, all these things you did, all the ways you gave and served and blessed others, it was never between you and them. All these things you did, you didn't do it for them. You did it for me. You served me. You gave to me. You loved me. If you have a need this morning as we sing.